That's a new one.
Stranger Things is overflowing with scenes that have become iconic, moments you've likely seen dissected a dozen times in endless video essays and breakdowns. But if there is one episode that struck me, making me rewind to examine the focal length or lighting choices, it is Chapter 4, The Sorcerer. Especially because of how this episode takes disparate, seemingly incompatible narrative threads, Max's psychological trauma, Cold War-era paranoia, and finally, the mystical, long-awaited culmination of Will Byers' arc.
I'm not Vecna. You sort of are.
And weaves them into a visual noose that tightens around the viewer's neck with every passing minute. So today, I want to dive deep into what makes this episode not just great television, but a true masterclass in mise-en-scène, editing rhythm, and cinematography. And what is that exactly?
Stranger Things 5 is more cinematic in scale than any season before.
The whole point of this episode is how a mission that was supposed to be a rescue, whether it was an improvised operation to evacuate children,
Mr. Watson?
or Max's mental escape, spirals into an absolute uncontrolled catastrophe, yet from the ashes of which a new power is born. But to understand why this works so well, let me give you some context. The script is fractured into several parallel lines, but the core of it is the concept of a trap, and the attempt to find a way out, be it a physical tunnel, a locked barn, or a door in the subconscious. Let's start with the introduction. We find ourselves in a barn. A place that by all genre canons should be a sanctuary is visually presented immediately as a cage. Pay attention to the lighting work in the opening scene. The lighting here is sparse, motivated by practical sources, dim incandescent bulbs hanging from the rafters. Cinematographer Caleb Heyman employs a technique here reminiscent of Caravaggio's chiaroscuro to emphasize the duality of the situation. The warm but dirty earthen tones of hay and wood create a sense not of coziness, but of suffocation. The shadows here aren't just the absence of light. They have weight. They press down on the characters. Joyce tries to negotiate with Derek, as she pleads,
I know you're scared, and I know you're angry.
Here, the direction works on a subtle contrast of angles. We have Joyce, shot from a low angle. Usually, in film language, such an angle lends a character dominance and threat, but here, thanks to the soft focus and the warm, enveloping light falling on her face, it emphasizes her maternal figure, her authority as a protector. She is trying to break down the barrier of fear. But then the edit cuts to Derek, and here the visual story shifts. He is shot in a tight close-up, compressed into the corner of the frame, literally pressed against a wooden beam, using a wide-angle lens that slightly distorts his features, amplifying the panic.
Derek is very confused. He thinks some evil child kidnappers have kidnapped him.
To him, Joyce is not a savior, but as he says himself,
An evil child kidnapper.
the props here play a key role. The ropes binding Derek are not just restraints, they are the physical embodiment of mistrust. And when Joyce unties him, asking,
If I untie you, will you cooperate and come with us?
it should be a moment of catharsis, an exhale. But the Duffer Brothers, like Hitchcock in his best thrillers, use this liberation as the trigger for chaos. As soon as the ropes fall, the camera goes off the leash. Static, measured shots are replaced by handheld camera work, conveying panic and disorientation. And this is where we see the mastery of the mise-en-scène. The barn, which seems spacious, suddenly becomes a labyrinth of beams, shadows, and dust when the Demogorgon appears. The monster's arrival isn't just a jump scare, it's a lesson in sound design. First, we hear the heavy breathing, the wet crunch, and the scraping before we even see it. It's a classic technique. Sound shapes the space of horror before the eye has time to register it. And when Joyce grabs the axe, the composition of the frame changes. She is no longer just a mom. She stands in the center of the frame, lit by harsh backlighting, transforming into an archetypal warrior. This shot with the axe is a direct visual rhyme with classic 80s slashers, but here, the final girl is protecting not herself, but her offspring. Now let's move to a completely different space. The improvised headquarters where Robin outlines the plan to infiltrate the base to Will, Lucas, Mike, and Joyce. Here we see a brilliant use of props for exposition. Hawkins' map on the wall serves as a visual anchor for the scene, uniting a motley group of characters into a single organism. There is no unnecessary drama in this scene with lighting in the previous scene for artificial hype. The viewer's attention is focused not on the lighting accents, but on the faces of the listeners and the map itself.
Dick.
What?
What? Oh.
Notice how Robin explains the plan by referring to the movie The Great Escape and the tunnels. This is a meta-commentary typical of Tarantino, but here it serves more than just a joke or Easter egg. It structures the chaos. The characters realize that they are in a situation similar to a movie and try to impose the logic of narrative on the madness of reality in order to preserve their sanity.
They have to hide the tunnels from the Nazis, and personally, for us, I like Dick.
This phrase, uttered by Robin, is accompanied by a rapid change in the reaction shots of the other characters. Editor Dean Ziverman works with contrast. He alternates Robin's rapid, rambling speech with close-ups of the listeners' faces. These reactions are shown to relieve the tension for a split second, allowing the viewer to breathe before picking up the pace again. When the action moves directly into the tunnels, the camera work changes radically. We move into extremely confined spaces. The camera is at the character's eye level, making us feel the narrowness of the earthen walls. Lighting here becomes a critical element of the narrative. Flashlight beams cut through the absolute darkness, creating dynamic, dancing shadows on the actors' faces. We see only what the characters see. This limits our information and increases anxiety. Classic suspense. The sound design in the tunnels is rhythmic. The crunch of earth underfoot, heavy breathing. All this creates a percussive background that sets the pace of movement. The finale of this scene works as a mirror image of the episode with the group on the other side, where Dustin and the others have reached a physical dead end. Here, the group stops not in front of an obstacle, but in front of their goal. The camera captures this point not as the end of the journey, but as the start of active action. They have arrived exactly where they need to break through. Visually, the scene transitions from the dynamics of wandering to the static readiness, the moment before the decisive blow. Now let's move on to what I consider to be the most important moment of the episode, which justifies its title, The Sorcerer. This is the scene before the descent into the tunnels and the subsequent confrontation. We must pause here and examine everything in detail. Before the heroes enter the darkness, a key dialogue takes place on the street that changes everything. Mike says to Will,
In real life, you're more like a sorcerer, because your powers don't come from a book of spells, they're innate.
pay attention to how this is filmed. It's an open shot with bright street lighting. There are no saving shadows or vignetting, which we will see later underground. The cinematographer uses this nakedness of light to emphasize Will's extreme sincerity and vulnerability in front of Mike at the moment of this confession. There is an interesting insider detail worth mentioning here. According to comments from the Duffer Brothers and leaked early drafts, this moment was planned as far back as Season 2.
We've always known that Will has a connection to Vecna and the Upside Down.
Will has always been connected to the Upside Down, not as a tourist, but as part of the ecosystem.
But he got me, Mom. I felt it everywhere. Everywhere.
In Dungeons & Dragons lore, a sorcerer differs from a wizard in that their magic comes from the blood, from instinct, not from spells memorized from books. Mike here acts as the voice of the authors, confirming a long-standing fan theory. Will is not just a victim, he is a conduit. When Will senses Vecna,
Vecna's seen. He knows where we are.
the camera uses a barely perceptible dolly zoom, the vertigo effect. The background behind Will compresses slightly. The perspective distorts, while his face remains in focus. This visualizes the dizziness and the mental shift. He sees what is hidden. He touches his neck, a gesture that has become a Pavlovian reflex of danger for us, but here, it signifies connection. But the true catharsis arrives in the finale, when the group faces Vecna. Vecna tells Will,
You were the first. You showed me what was possible.
In this scene, the mise-en-scène establishes a clear hierarchy. Vecna towers above. He is a monster made of flesh and vines, occupying the dominant position in the frame. Will is initially below, on his knees, suppressed. But look at the lighting. The entire world is bathed in the aggressive, saturated red light of the Upside Down. However, When Will lifts his head, a different hue appears on his face, a cold, almost white catchlight in his eyes. This is the visual code of resistance, a spark that does not belong to this hell. Noah Schnapp delivers incredible acting here using only his eyes. We see the transition from panic-stricken terror to cold, calculated realization. Will understands. His connection to Vecna is a two-way channel. If Vecna can feel him, then he can feel Vecna, and, perhaps, influence him.
If you know what he's seeing and feeling, maybe that's how we can stop him.
The moment Will stands up is shot from a low angle, heroizing him. It is a visual rhyme with Vecna, but where Vecna is distortion and decay, Will in this frame is integrity. He doesn't shoot fireballs, yet, but his very posture, the way he withstands the mental blow, tells us the Sorcerer has awakened.
It was the only one standing, and boom, boom.
It is a subtle but powerful transformation, conveyed through body language and camera work rather than cheap special effects. Parallel to this, we observe Max infiltrating the mind of Henry Creel. Here, the color palette takes a radical turn. Instead of the dirty tones of reality, we see saturated, surreal orange and red hues of a canyon. This is the
a world of 1,000 memories.
As Max puts it, the cinematography here is brilliant in its claustrophobia within an open space. The camera often shoots Max and Holly through natural frames, rock openings, arches, crevices. This creates a frame within a frame effect, subconsciously reminding the viewer they are still trapped. They are not free. This is a prison without bars, a panopticon where the observer is always present, even if we don't see him. The transition between memories is done without hard cuts, through the morphing of the environment. We see Max literally passing through layers of reality, from the lab to the school hallway, from the hallway back to the lab. This visualizes the fragmented nature of a psychopath's memory. Particularly interesting is the memory from 1950. The color grading here becomes softer, almost sepia-toned, mimicking old Kodachrome film stock, but with a disturbing rotten subtext. Max realizes she isn't just an observer. She is part of the curse.
And that's when I understood.
She whispers, realizing the connection. The camera slowly pushes in on her face, isolating her from the background, emphasizing the moment of horrifying realization. The transition to the line of children at the base is the moment where the episode switches genres to a military thriller, but with a unique twist.
Cargo has arrived.
The scene where Derek walks through the main gate of the base is a brilliant visual oxymoron. There is no oppressive darkness here. Everything takes place in harsh daylight. And this realism works even more powerfully. We see a lone figure with a G.I. Joe lunchbox against the backdrop of a huge, cold military perimeter. This lunchbox is not just a prop, it is a symbol. In a sterile world of orders, this object grounds us. Derek clings to it like a shield. And when he uses the walkie-talkie inside the lunchbox, it turns a child's toy into an instrument of salvation. This is the quintessence of Stranger Things, childlike innocence as a weapon capable of breaking through adult defenses. The momentum accelerates in the truck scene when Murray and Robin take the children away. Note that when the heavy vehicle loses its balance, it does not perform cinematic somersaults, but simply falls on its side. The camera is firmly fixed inside the cabin and rotates with it. The viewer physically feels the impact. Towards the end, when the Demogorgon's attack begins, the editing becomes frantic. The rhythm of the cuts quickens. We see flashes of gunfire that work like a strobe light, snatching fragments of horror from the darkness. The silhouettes of monsters, the screaming faces of soldiers, the panic of children. This creates disorientation. We don't see the whole picture. We see the chaos of war.
We're all gonna die! We're all gonna die!
And then, silence. The calm before the storm. We see a static frame. Vecna stands amid fire and destruction. The lighting here is tinged with an infernal red, emanating from fires and fissures. This is a visual signal. The other side has seeped into our world. The boundary has been erased. The finale of the episode is a visual apotheosis. Vecna is no longer hiding in the shadows of the mind. He is here, in the physical world.
All I needed was someone to open the door.
The VFX here work in tandem with Barry Gower's practical makeup, and it shows in the texture. Vecna's skin is charred. It glistens wetly in the light of the fires. When he stands amidst the fire and destruction at the base, it resembles the hellscapes of Hieronymus Bosch or Goya's Saturn devouring his son, transplanted into an 80s aesthetic. The lighting in the final battle switches to an aggressive, saturated red. It is the color of alarm, the color of blood, the color of Vecna himself. Red light floods everything, the twisted military hardware, the monster itself. It is the antagonist's total visual dominance. The editing in this scene reaches peak intensity. We switch between the group at the base and Hopper and Eleven's desperate struggle in the lab. This creates a sense of the global nature of the threat. Vecna is everywhere. Eleven's moment of helplessness is particularly powerful. The camera focuses on her face, on the blood from her nose, a familiar visual code for power. As viewers, we are trained to expect a decisive telekinetic strike, but nothing happens. Exhausted by Dr. K's suppressants, Eleven tries to help Hopper, but her enemy here is not a monster, but people and circumstances. The camera lingers, using rack focus to shift from her to nearby objects. This subverts the viewer's expectations. We are used to Elle saving everyone with the power of her mind, not her physical strength. Here, she is powerless, and that makes the situation truly terrifying, depriving us of our usual support. Finally, I want to draw your attention to one detail of the sound design that makes this episode a masterpiece. In moments of highest tension, for example when Vecna approaches Will or when Demogorgon jumps on the truck, the sound often does not increase, but on the contrary, disappears. The sound editors use a sonic vacuum effect. The ambient noise of battle is cut out or muffled, reduced to a low-end rumble or a hypertrophied heartbeat. This creates an isolation of the character within the moment of horror. And then, a sharp audio impact, a jump scare, snapping us back to reality. A roar, a gunshot, a scream. This dynamic range keeps us on edge, never letting us adjust to the noise level. We cannot relax because the silence here is just as dangerous as the roar of explosions. Sorcerer is a triumph of form and content. The Duffer Brothers utilize every tool of cinematic language, from lenses and lighting to editing and sound, to tell a story about the loss of control and the finding of new strength. There are no accidental shots here. Every catchlight in Will's eyes, every shadow in Max's cave, works toward a unified idea. And when the screen cuts to black, leaving us with that feeling of devastation and awe, we realize we have just watched not merely an episode of a series, but a true cinematic experience. A masterpiece woven from light, shadow, and pure, distilled horror. But that, as they say, is a story for another video.
I actually have to go to set now, so thank you for tuning in.